Today's episode is sponsored by Barajas Insurance Group, also known as BIG. They understand making healthcare choices is a big decision. Eliminate stress and confusion by calling Barajas Insurance Group's licensed agents today at 1-888-347-2278 or go online to barajasinsuranceGroup.com. Go big and let them help you find the plan that best fits your needs.
Hello, and welcome to the Proactive Caregiving Podcast. As a CPA with over 20 years as an industry accountant, Jessica stepped away from the corporate world to become a full-time caregiver for her mother. Having learned invaluable lessons along the way, she is now here to share those with you and to invite you to join her on this caregiver's journey. Here is your host, Jessica Cannon.
Hello, everybody. I am the Proactive Caregiver, and I specialize in educating others on how to be proactive by empowering you, the caregiver. Because if you cannot take care of yourself, then you cannot take care of your loved one. And to help reduce a little bit of stress, today's topic, we're going to jump into Medicare because it's that time of year again, folks. It is open enrollment from October 15th through December 7th for the plan year of 2023. And also because the growing number of Millennial and Sandwich generation caregivers, this topic can't wait. Aside from the fact that it is open enrollment, this is the time to review your current healthcare coverage and maybe go over the existing details to see what changes have taken place. Because for 2022, there were over 28 million enrollees into the Medicare Advantage plan alone. More plans were added to Medicare Advantage, and the cool thing to me is that of those plans that were added, majority of them have 4-star ratings. You know, when you look at everything else as 4-star ratings, restaurants, hotels, and this, it's of comfort to know that Medicare Advantage also receives these ratings. So because this information is not exactly the light subject to go into, I asked Barajas Insurance owner Joe Barajas to join me today so that he can help explain some of these information, because there are topics that come up like rate increases and what happens with income and how that's decided, and a few other questions that we want to shed some light on for Medicare and new enrollees. If you're new to a plan this year and you're questioning what direction I should go in, or you don't even know, like Medicare, what's that? You're going to want to pay attention to this information. So thanks for coming on with me today, Joe. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Yes. So what I've been realizing is Medicare, it's once you start to understand a little bit of the information, it tends to change because there are the changes year by year. And with things happening this year at this current time, everybody's concerned about inflation. One of the questions that came up was whether or not the Medicare premiums were also going to increase for the 2023 year plan.
For the last couple of years, they have been increasing. So it's a valid question and a valid concern. And while I get to bring a little bit of good news today, it's got to be tempered. In 2022, your Medicare Part B premium based on income is $170.10 for the Part B.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2023, it's actually going to go down $5.20 to $164.90.
Nice.
2023. So yeah, it's been a while since it's actually gone down. And obviously it's nominal, but still it is a decrease.
Right. And every dollar counts when we're approaching that time of year when most of us are on fixed income.
That's correct.
So as the new enrollee looks at their plans and they're trying to decide which direction to go in, is there a concern for Medicare premiums that are based on their income levels or at that time?
So it is based on income. For an individual who makes roughly 97,000 or less, it's going to be that 164.90. If you're a couple filing jointly, it's 194,000 or less to have the 164.90 Part B premium. There's several charts, but essentially it is going to be an IRMA, income related monthly adjusted amount that will tell you what it's going to be above and beyond a 164.90. And I mean, at the risk of going through every single chart, it does go all the way up to over 500,000. So like to give you, the low end of 164.90 to the top end, if you make above 500,000 as an individual or above 750,000 as a couple, you're going to pay $560.50 for your Part B, which is a rough adjustment of about $395.60. So, and I can provide charts if needed, but at the risk of confusing you with a bunch of numbers, I wanted to give you the low end and the very high end.
Absolutely. Thanks for clarifying that, because it's not a one size fits all, basically.
No, definitely is income related, and it is a 2-year look back with Medicare. So if somebody is turning 65 and between 60 and 64, they have made, really good money, and they do not pay the 164.90, they're paying more, right? And it's going to be individualized, right? So just because I gave you the 500,000 and 700,000, if you're somewhere in between the 97,000 and 500,000, it's going to be different. So it's individualized. And then what they can do is 2 years after they've turned 65, so 67, they can then request from Medicare to look at their income because maybe it has dropped.
Right. That's a relief too. Because that's another concern. Once I make this choice, am I stuck in this choice for the time to come?
Right. I mean, because at a certain age, maybe you can afford, the income related monthly adjusted amount, right?
Right.
But when you start getting into your later ages or your advanced stages of life where your income is extremely fixed, $560.50 can be a pretty penny for somebody.
Right. No kidding, especially when we have other issues that we're trying to make every dollar stretch for.
Exactly. Yeah.
So are the Medicare premiums paid in advance then?
So typically they can be paid in advance. So what happens is if you don't draw Social Security, you have to pay 3 months at a time.
Gotcha.
They're moving toward being able to pay through your electronic funds, but they still want to get 3 months at a time, right?
So one other question that I just realized, the difference between the deductibles for Part A and Part B. Can you explain a little bit of that for me?
Yeah. So typically when you get your Medicare Part A, which covers your hospital coverages or it provides your hospital coverage, a lot of people, they're a little confused and they're almost caught off guard to find out that just because you get your Part A, maybe it's a premium free Part A and you're not paying for it. You still have to pay a deductible if you use it, right, for the hospital. In 2023, that deductible is going to be $1,600 every 60 days should you use it, which is an increase from 2022. It was $1,556 in 2022. So it's a $44 increase in 2023 for your Part A deductible. And again, it's an every 60-day deductible. So if you use it, let's say January 1st, you use it again February 1st, you won't have to pay that $1,600 again. But if you use it, again, January 1st, but you use it in April, that's past 60 days, you'll have to pay another $1,600. That's for Part A, the hospital. For your doctor services or outpatient surgery, there is a yearly deductible, and it is $233 in 2022. It actually goes down in 2023 to $226, and it's a one-time or an annual deductible that you pay before your Part B starts to cover at an 80%, 20% split.
Wow. Very interesting. A lot of information that we're just not privy to until it comes time for it. And so it's good to know in advance as much as possible what to expect. So for the new enrollee, that is, they know which insurance that they need to go, or if they know the direction they're trying to go in. One of the questions that often comes up and is kind of hard to answer, but Medicare is that daunting subject to approach for the first time members. And so when the question comes up as to what is the best plan I should go for, what can you advise them to ask when they are working with an agent like you?
I think I told you before we've had conversations. I love this question. And not because it's my job to provide a best plan. It's my job to tell you that best is relative to the person, right? Best is an actual superlative that we agents are not supposed to be using, anyways. And the reason I like that rule in Medicare is because, again, everybody's situation is going to be different. And people value certain benefits, certain premiums, certain plans, companies differently than other people. And so, because of that, your specific situation is going to be unique, and you're going to pick a plan that fits your needs at that right time, at that right price for you, regardless of what somebody else may tell you. And it's the job of myself and my agents at the Barajas Insurance Group to sit there and listen to your needs, your situation, and help you pick a plan that fits your situation. So, there's several options out there for people to look at. I know we're talking about Medicare, and obviously Medicare is after the deductible is met, it's an 80-20 plan where the Medicare pays 80% of the Part B bills and the client pays 20%. But the client typically wants to get something that covers more. And what's being tossed out there are the terms Medicare Advantage, and you're having all this advertisement that talks about it. But you're not realizing that in this world of Medicare Advantage, you really have a couple of options: health maintenance organization, which basically says you get a group of doctors you have to go see, or PPO, preferred provider organization, which gives you both in and out of network access to doctors on a nationwide scale. And everybody's going to be different about what they decide is correct for them, right? If you are somebody who doesn't travel, maybe you don't need a PPO, preferred provider organization, that gives you in and out of network access to doctors on a nationwide scale. And so for you, it's better that you get a health maintenance organization that's more regionalized, more localized, because it offers greater benefits or lower copays that fit you, right? Or you could be turning 65, but you're 65 is the new 35, so you're traveling everywhere. So you want that added benefit of being able to see a doctor in California or at your decision, your discretion. And these added extra benefits that you see advertised on TV, while they come with them, they may not be as rich as some of the others, but that's okay for you because it fits your situation. So to answer the question about what is best for somebody, it's always going to be relative to the person and their situation at that particular time and year, by the way, and that particular time and health. So it is good to get with a real life person, hopefully localized, kind of go over your situation.
That is a perfect answer. I absolutely hear that. And the first thing that comes to mind is exactly why this open enrollment period is so important: to review what you have, maybe what you chose last year worked for your plans, traveling or otherwise, and this next year coming forward isn't going to be the same. And so you have the option to move and change and save some money, or just maybe saving money by paying a little bit more on a premium, but because later down the road you won't have higher expenses when it comes to actually using the insurance.
Right. And without overloading, everyone with a bunch of information, but a lot of times it really is just coming down to the network of doctors, as well as, co-payments and extra benefits that these Medicare Advantage plans may offer. Because they're really starting to bring down these costs in premiums. A lot of times it could be a zero premium. But again, I don't want to weigh this conversation down with too many figures and numbers. I mean, we can talk about that if somebody has any specific questions.
Awesome. Thank you. So then, is that similar towards the supplements as well? There isn't, I guess what I would say is there's not an actual best supplement to get.
Yeah, or the one size fits all.
Right.
There was a plan that used to be known as a Cadillac plan. It was called a Plan F. But now that somebody is turning 65, or somebody's turning 65 after January 1st, 2020, or if they have not had their Part B before that date, they cannot access that plan. If you had it before that date, or you turned 65 before that date, you can access it, but you'd be paying for it. And what that means is that Plan F for Frank would be something that somebody could purchase, and it would cover 100% of the Part A deductible. It would cover 100% of the Part B deductible, as well as 100% of the 20%.
Nice.
But it does not come with prescription drugs
Oh, right.
being advertised on the television. It doesn't come with those benefits at all. So, like dental, vision, things of that nature.
Right.
So, some people may not want to pay that fee for that secondary type of insurance, which is what a Medicare supplement is. It is a true secondary insurance that pays after Medicare pays, and only if Medicare pays. It actually doesn't even come with a network of doctors because it borrows from the same network as Medicare. So again, if Medicare pays, the supplement pays. And there's about 11 supplement plans out there, Plan A through N. Plan G would be the next one in line that people can have access to that would look like a Plan F, except for it does make you pay for the Part B deductible. And then after that, it covers your 20% at 100%. And from day one, it does cover the Part A deductible. But again, it's going to be up to the person, right? Sometimes they're buying a supplement plan based on price only.
Right.
Maybe they don't mind cost sharing. They don't need 100% coverage. So your point about does my previous statement about each person's situation is unique to them apply to a Medicare supplement? Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely does. And that's why it's good to sit down and review your situation with a local agent.
You're helping me. Every time we have these conversations, I think of what coverages my mother has and what I need to pay as her health changes, and what the areas and the supplements and the plans, what should I be focused on? What should I look for that would help her save more, or would actually cover more health needs that she has, because it's a changing year to year need.
One thing I will say is, for your audience members to know that a supplement plan is a supplement plan is a supplement plan. So
Right.
you might see all of these companies, but if they're offering a Plan G, that Plan G is the same across the board. Now, maybe they might add some specific discounts, I don't know, for vision or something, but it's not going to be a different plan just because it's got company A versus company B. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Again, this is again why you want to speak to somebody. I keep referencing local because local typically, it's obviously to help Barajas Insurance Group, but also just to let your audience know that localized agents have to recertify every year in this business for each company that they're representing. And they have to make sure that they're up to date on the changes, but it's also very regionalized. So if you're talking to somebody out in, again, we'll just say New York, and you live here in Austin, the odds that they're going to know the specific network of doctors, the
Right.
specific localized changes, maybe, but the odds are not as high in your favor that's going to happen. Whereas a localized agent, they just know their region so well, and they can speak to not only your specific situation, but also the city's situation as to what's going on, again, with the network of doctors and the plans.
Exactly. The last thing you want is to get into a plan only to find out later, as you need it, that it's not something that is covered by the plan because that individual wasn't well educated in the plans or your region, your area.
That's correct. Like a classic example, or a lot of stuff that we heard as agents this year is, I took that plan, whatever that plan was, doesn't matter. But I took that plan because the person that I spoke to on the phone helped me realize that, wow, those benefits are great, but they didn't really verify, whether my prescriptions were accepted at the pharmacy I go to, or whether my doctor actually accepted that plan, because we just picked it based off of benefits alone, which could be detrimental to the person, especially if they have to wait a whole year to make a change to go
Exactly.
back to. So, a localized agent is going to know those, or at least they should know those types of situations, and can say, hey, that might be a good one benefit wise, but you're going to be giving up your doctor, or whatever the situation is.
You touched on this a little bit before we moved on to the next question. So I want to kind of circle back a little bit as far as secondary insurance goes. You mentioned this a little bit with the supplements. Is it possible for someone to have Medicare and also have a secondary insurance as well?
Yeah. Just to kind of wrap up the supplement, it's a secondary insurance. It's not a full service insurance. So what that means to somebody is, regardless of the cost, if Medicare doesn't pay for that service, that's not paying a single dime for you. So whereas a true insurance, one that's a full service insurance, it should be something where it's paying something toward the insurance, unless it's not a procedure they cover, right?
Mhm.
So Medicare itself is a full insurance, Part A and Part B. It doesn't cover prescriptions, so I guess that can be considered lacking in certain areas, but it does cover hospital and doctor. And it can be turned into a secondary if you have an employer plan that is your primary insurance. And then in some cases, Medicare can come in and pay something toward the copay or the co-insurance, whatever the employer plan is showing. But it would not be a secondary insurance to Medicare supplement. It would not be a secondary insurance to Medicare Advantage. In that scenario, if you have a Medicare supplement, Medicare is the primary payer. The Medicare supplement is the secondary. And if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, Medicare actually is paying the Advantage company to take care of you. So it's not paying any of your hospital or doctor bills. The insurance company, the Medicare Advantage company, is paying as the primary payer, and then you're technically the secondary payer because you have co-payments typically.
Right. Very fascinating. It's just amazing to me how much information goes into this and how much we really need to know and understand as we approach our agents to ask what we can do versus what we should do, because it's really hard to answer that question. So as your new enrollees are entering that age limit where they're getting closer to where they can actually have Medicare, is it possible for them to have Medicare without Social Security benefits?
Yes. hmm So you don't have to draw Social Security in order to be eligible for Medicare, right? So if I'm turning 65 and I want to continue working, but maybe my employer plan is significantly more than the Part B premium, I can opt to go ahead and enroll in the Part B and pay my Part B premium. Remember, if I'm not taking Social Security benefits, I have to pay, 3 months at a time. But if that's still feasible for me, I can do that and then decide if I want to sign up for, any of those other options I mentioned, like a Medicare supplement, purchase a drug plan, or a Medicare Advantage plan that includes prescription drugs. Those would be options that would be open to me if I was turning 65 and decided to delay my Social Security benefits. And by the way, there are benefits to delaying your Social Security. But I would definitely speak to a Social Security Administration expert on that, maybe even a financial planner or even a lawyer that deals with the Social Security Administration.
Yes.
But there are benefits to delaying Social Security if it fits your needs. But yes, you can have Medicare without drawing your Social.
That's interesting because most people are anxious to get to that retirement age because they think that Social Security benefits is basically going to be the answer to their problems, and they can't wait to retire. They can't wait to get on these benefits, and then they realize it doesn't cover as much that they thought it was going to.
Yeah, there's a financial gain to delaying it for sure. Again, I would like to revert any client that's thinking about that to the Social Security Administration, but
Right.
I would, I hear some of my clients actually telling me, if I delay just by 2 years, my income goes from this to this, and it's so significant that it just makes sense for me to do it.
So when your clients come to you now and they are in this area of, I have no idea what to do, what can you advise them? What do you wish they would know going into this and to help them make that choice of what direction to go in?
Right. Yeah. No, the biggest thing is just knowing when to sign up for Medicare, which is 3 months before your birth month. Sometimes people delay that and have to try to wait for the Medicare system to fix their current situation, or sometimes the Medicare won't start on their birthday because of it. So I would love to know you sign up through for Medicare through the Social Security Administration. You don't call Medicare; you actually call Social Security to sign up for your Part B. You could also do it online at socialsecurity.gov or ssa.gov. Make sure it's .gov, not .com, because that's a sales agency trying to get your business. It's got
Right.
to say .gov, so .gov, in order for it to be, the actual administration. Same thing with Medicare. You hear
Mm-hmm.
Medicare.com. That's another organization, a sales organization. It's got to say Medicare.gov. So I would love them to know ahead of time to sign up 3 months before their birth month. And then I would love them to know that Medicare is it's always been designed to be an 80-20 plan with no prescription drug coverage, right? That's what it's always been designed to do. So while it's covering you, and yes, you are paying for it, it's not covering you at 100%. And you do need to look at other options, such as the Medicare supplement or the Medicare Advantage. So
Right.
those things, if they know that ahead of time, it really does help the situation for the client when they're coming to me to figure out what their needs are.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you adding some light to this, because Medicare is still, just in the little bit of topics that we covered, it is still a very difficult area for us to understand and just step in and say, I want this, this, and this, and be done.
No, you're right. And one of the things that I appreciate you're doing is trying to bring this more to a mainstream light, because a lot of times people wait to the last minute, the 11th hour to do this. And then
Right.
there's lack of education, or maybe there's a rushed feeling of making a decision. But the other thing that, I'd like to say is that, you know, educating the people that listen to your podcast is a great thing, but also knowing localized agents can take the burden off, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to, again, certify every year. Even the state of Texas makes us can do continuing education every 2 years. So there's a constant learning with the agents,
Right.
not just plans and the city that we're going to be offering these plans in, but just on the insurance itself and the law and everything going into it. So it it can be a good thing to have an agent that you know and trust, that
Absolutely.
you can lean on and keep educating you every year. Because everything I say, I tell my clients, everything I just said in this hour and a half meeting that we had together, you're going to retain about 25% of that, if that. And
Right.
by keeping me as your agent, I'm here year round to answer these questions that you're going to have. And it's okay that we're repeating this, because repetition through repetition is how you're going to start to get the knowledge that you need to know in this business.
Right. Absolutely. And that's what we have to do, is we have to start learning as time passes, and educate ourselves as we, year after year, finding out those little bits, and then we gradually become more comfortable, more trusting, and we're not hitting that sticker shock when things happen and we're not covered with the insurance, or we miss deadlines that we weren't aware that we needed to actually focus on.
Yep, that's
So
correct.
having as much information as possible has been something that has helped me with my mother and her care, and knowing what her financial boundaries are and how insurance helps to balance some of that. And so it is valuable information. And the one thing I'm grateful for are agents like you and Monique as well at Barajas Insurance, because I don't have to be the expert. I know I can go to you as an agent and ask questions and get the information and feel better about it. And then it's this peace of mind that I learned a little bit more, and I didn't have to know every single bit of information, because the little bit that I feel comfortable with now at this point, it's going to change a little bit more next year as more plans come on, or increases or decreases happen, or plans shift for one reason or the other. So it is a benefit to me and others, especially with millennial caregivers or the sandwich generation, that they don't have the time to look into the details. They just need to know where to go to get valid, trusted information. So thank you for providing that to our community.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's so true. I just appreciate the interest and the effort to learn,
Yes.
because when I did this back in 2009, I was dealing with a population of people who just didn't have family members that would help them make this decision. And so that's where, I share this passion of educating the client, educating anybody that's a part of the client, daughter, son, family member, whatever, because you can't make an informed decision without the education. And you also can't become highly educated in an hour and a half presentation,
Right.
which is why I stress building a relationship with someone localized, because this is a ongoing learning curve for not
Yes,
just the client, but also for myself as the agent, because we're always learning about the new changes every year. So
exactly. So for the areas, I know there's people all over listening to this, but for those who are fortunate enough in the local area, where can they find your location so they can meet with you and ask questions?
a couple of things. We are pretty spread out in Texas. Dallas, Houston, Corpus Christi, San Antonio, the Valley, and obviously Austin, all the way up to Bell County. So we have a pretty good reach. We do have a local office here in Austin, Southwest Austin, over here at 2500 West William Cannon Drive, Building 1, Suite 101, Austin, Texas, 78745. And I can provide that in writing for you too. But if you are just kind of looking for information before you reach out to the Barajas Insurance Group, you can go to www.barajasinsuranceGroup.com and reach out to one of us, and we'll get back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today, Joe. I really appreciate it. And I hope there are other caregivers out there that are able to hear some of this information and grasp and retain, because even Joe said after an hour and a half, some of it doesn't stick. So after this short amount of time, you might want to reach out to the agent and say, and ask those same questions again and get your answers from them to see how they apply to your individual situation.
Correct, yes.
So thanks for being with me today. And thank you everybody for joining in. I hope this gave you a little bit more food for thought as you approach your open enrollment period. And until next time, be proactive. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. We really hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about proactive caregiving and to hear other episodes of this podcast, please visit www.jessicalazelcannon.com. This podcast is produced by Cannon Light Media, LLC, www.cannonlightmedia.com. Music provided by Chris Paradise.